to see everyone. Actually, not see everyone. I can't see anyone apart from our colleagues who've just been presenting. So lovely to see them. And thank you very much for that. Emily, I just caught some of your presentation there, and it's really lovely to hear what you had to say about book talk and how, you know, reading anything apart from certain celebrity authors apparently is encouraged, which I think is really fantastic. And I absolutely sign up to it's just about finding the right text out there for those young people. And once you've got that, you know, they're going to be hooked for life. And it's getting them in that very hard, sometimes first door. So yeah, really good to hear all of that. I'm assuming that everyone can see this screen, so I'm just going to crack on unless someone waves and shouts at me. We should be good to go. So yeah, because I'm a cheery type of person, I thought I'd start with some of the issues. I'm sure that you as teachers are very familiar with this picture, so we won't dwell on this really, but just suffice to remind us all that we are looking at a large group of our young people, particularly in the areas that we, the National Literacy Trust, work in or focus our work on, in disadvantaged areas of young people going from primary school to secondary school without the literacy skills that they need to succeed. And of course, the absolute lack of books, particularly in homes around the country. And we don't need to talk for too long about the pandemic to remember that the digital divide is also a big factor which is playing into this. So there's a bleak slide for us all to remember the sort of mountain that we're climbing, but it's a mountain of books that we're going to use to pull ourselves up there. So it's going to be okay. Just sort of going on to the sort of attitudes around reading, you know, Emily clearly will not be having a problem within her classroom, but I know that when it comes to reading, we will be looking at sort of some comments like this. It's really boring. And then this will move up to, there's nothing I want to read about, can then go to, I hate reading, and then escalates quickly to a little bit further on from this if we're unlucky. But there are certainly many pupils that you'll have that will have this attitude towards reading, and this is what we want to have a look at, because we know that our research, I am from the National Literacy Trust, so you know I do come with an awesome amount of research at our organisation. We're well known for it, and we're really proud of our research that we get on with our research team. But you know, it's a kind of obvious thing to say that, you know, if you enjoy it, you're better at it. And I would personally argue, I think it's not so much the act of reading that you enjoy, because really that's decoding, but it's the subject. And to enjoy it, of course, you have to do it. You have to want to do it. So you have to realize the relevance of reading to your life. You need the right materials. And I think you also, another ingredient which you need is permission to do it too. So if you don't see people around you, you know, in your family perhaps, or in school, your peers, your friends, or even heroes that you look up to, if you don't see people like that, people like you that are reading, and you don't see reading materials that feature people like you in them, then where is the relevance and where is that permission? Answers in the chat. Okay, so let's have a look a little bit at the audience as well. So I'm hopeful that I can see the chat from everyone. I'm struggling to do that, to be honest, with whilst presenting, so I think I won't try. But I would like it if people could put into the chat any sort of, can you tell me anything about the types of children that you have who are reluctant to read, who are not so keen on picking up books or other types of reading material? In the meanwhile, I'm going to play you a little bit of a case study as we move into the world of sport. So I will stop this share. Technology is going to go well. So I can now see the chat. Nothing in it yet. Come on, people, let's get into the chat. And I am going to share my next screen. Right, so this is like a case study from one of our programs, which is called Premier League Reading Stars. I remembered to tick both boxes, so this is going to go well.
I love football like to bits.
His ideal day would be Harley, his football, the bell goes at 9 o'clock, go and play, and he'd bring it in at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Say I had to pick between £1,000 or a day of football, I would choose football every time.
He would play all day, every day. He just wasn't quite so keen on reading.
I didn't really see the point in reading books like in the afternoon or in the morning when we come in.
Harley saw reading as a chore rather than something they really enjoyed. We got involved with the Premier League primary stars a couple of terms.
Not sure what's happened there. Do you know, Jim?
Of reading.
Within the class, we've been doing poetry, role play, looking at truths and opinions, choosing the right book.
And then we'll perform them in a minute.
And we've involved this with sport and football, just to engage them a little bit more.
The fact that it's a football club coming in, it gets them excited. They think, oh, it's football. They see them in the kits with, you know, the Derby County, the Ram on it. And they're all there reading books, wanting to be part of it.
It's a lot easier to read about football because I like it and I understand it more than anything else. Say we had geography work, I just wouldn't get that. If it was football work, I'd be finished first.
First week he didn't take a book home, and then as the weeks went on, he started to take more books home with him, started to read longer books, started to get involved in more of the questions and more of the lesson.
Harley, what was your target? Yours?
To read longer books.
We're no longer having to say, Harley, get on with your reading. He has a book he reads and his head's in it.
I just picked it because it was about football and it's challenging. It's got 3 to 4 words on a page that I don't know.
His hand's up so much more. He's actually far more engaged with all the reading and the writing. I'm very proud of his achievement and he should be proud of what he's achieved.
I want to read more. On the Jamie Johnson book, I wanted to read all afternoon and forget lessons just so I could finish it.
So there we go. Hopefully not just the soaring rock track in the background will have inspired you there. But you can see that football, a really good example of how finding the right book has really engaged that young man with reading. And of course, a good role model as well. So a lot of the work that we do involves working with sports clubs who are going into classrooms and doing that book chat that Emily's just been talking about here as well, engaging with what it is that you like so that we can find you the right kind of text, point you in the right direction. And obviously, Scott, you do a lot of work on that as well. So this is a really important bit of steerage for our young people where they don't really know where to go. And it's really good that people like you are around, Scott, as well, because who has the time to read all those books that are out there? So finding the right materials and having good, reliable sources of information to be able to go to and find those new, exciting titles with that variety rather than going to our old favourites is really important. So sadly, I can't see anything in the chat at the moment. I do have a sticker system. I was going to do some rewards for excellent comments in the chat, but at the moment, it looks like no one is going to win any stickers. Let me tease you with the sort of thing that you would be winning if you were popping into the chat a bit of a descriptor about the young people that we're talking about here. So this is an example of a resource that we use within our one of our programs, and there's an actual physical poster, but this is a PDF version as well. So when you do well, because you're just never growing out, you never grow out of wanting to win stickers. So the attempt is that across the course of a term, as we get a reading achievement, it might be finding a book that you really want to read. It might be finishing a chapter. It might be doing a review. Here we go. We start to fill the stadium. And can we get to that magic number 100 at the end where the goal gets scored? That's the purpose of that one. So that's an example of one of the free resources that is on the Premier League Primary Stars site, actually, but I'll go on to talk a little bit more about that. I am now also excited to let you know that you won't just have to listen to my flat southern monotone, because we do have a guest here, but I'm not quite ready to talk to him at the moment, but I know that he is here. So that will be coming. I'm going to go back to my presentation now. Okay, good stuff. So yeah, I want to talk to you about what it is that makes it work. So why, a bit of a kind of the theory about why it is that sport is such a great engagement tool. and who it is that we're focusing our programs on. So we're kind of looking a lot at the pupils who aren't meeting expected standards, those who are at risk of failing perhaps or falling behind in education, and those who are interested in sport. They're pupils that may have already been involved in plenty of literacy interventions before. They might not see literacy as being relevant to their lives, might lack positive role models, reading role models, as we've been talking about already. They might lack a reader identity, as in they haven't found the right text for them, and often, being from disadvantaged communities. I just want to make a point about gender here as well, because there is a tendency to assume that football is for boys or sport is really popular with boys. This is the great way to engage them. But we focus our programs on finding areas of cultural influence that appeal to young people. And we particularly work with those, we use those, the appeal of sport to engage the young people who are not doing so well with their literacy. So this isn't a solution for boys. These are solutions for young people who we want to engage and we want to motivate. And it just so happens that they are engaged by sport. I have to say that one of our programs, I did meet a teacher once who's for a football themed program, and they selected 15 young people who actively didn't like football, which I was surprised that you could find 15 young people that don't like football. But I was then told that the program is still a success because the activities are really good and really engaging as well. So there we go. Hopefully some of them would have become football fans by the end of it as well. So these are the three things that we use, and these kind of underpin a lot of our work. In fact, all of our work. We're talking about the values of sport, because these are things like being resilient, being diverse, trying hard. So the values of sport are threaded throughout all of our activities and resources that we create. And I think, Emily, again, I keep referencing you guys because I've just sort of come in and been inspired by what you've been saying, but walking it like you talk it, essentially. So it's that thing about having that, books, magazines under your arm, talking about what you were reading last night, the role model element, and then the engagement. And I think this is a really important point, which I want to make, is that, the young people that we're particularly interested in reaching are often those that might be identified for an intervention, or feel like the ones that they feel themselves like they are yet again picked on as being the ones that aren't achieving, they're different from somebody else. And so we concentrate a lot on our programs being the thing to be part of. So it's like a squad, it's like a unit, it's like a team. And, for example, I go to schools where young people are saying, I can't wait to be for next year when I've got a chance to making it into the Reading Stars scheme, because they don't see it as a program which is for a literacy intervention, which is what it is. They see it as the chance to be part of the Reading Stars squad. So we've got resources where you can put the team sheet up on the school wall, for example, those kind of things. And we work with some amazing partners. We are so blessed to have a great range. So we get to work with the FA, the Premier League, and with club community organisations. And for those of you that don't like football, I will continue to talk to you. But the thing is that it's such a powerful, powerful force, the branding that come with this, and with rugby and with other sports as well, which we engage with cricket. And we're looking at basketball and in a whole wide range of sports. It's the fact that they are themed by those sports. It's the fact that they're fun. And it's all delivered through stealth, really, as I say, because these young people believe that they're part of a sporting activity as opposed to a literacy one. So that's at the heart of what we do. I think really what hopefully you can see from that is we're starting with what they love. So finding out what it is that they love, and then building the reading materials around them. So it could be dance, it could be fishing, it could be gaming, it could be animals. So again, on this, if you've got ideas about what partners you might like to see us working with, to engage with, and if you've got ideas around what sport or cultural influencing factor that you would like to see us working with, please put them into the chat, and we would be, we're always looking for new ideas and for new partners to take this and expand these sort of programs and ideas further. But right now, I think it's time for our mystery guest time. This author is well known for his football and history books. He's the winner of the Ruth Rendell Award, shortlisted for Blue Peter Children's Book Award, and has published over 50 books. So who is it? And is there anything in the chat? Yes, I think you've already identified that it's Tom Palmer, because Tom Palmer wrote to everyone in the chat. So I missed that bit. So I've blundered there. Tom, are you here? Can you turn your video on?
Hello. Sorry.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. Having a lovely chat with some teachers here, talking about sport and literacy and how we can use sport as an engagement tool. Tom, I've drafted some questions to ask you. Again, if anyone wants to ask anything salient, please put something into the chat for us there, and we'll try and get to a couple of the questions. Tom, you write about sport and you write about history. Why do you write about those themes?
That's what I'm into. I'm into football, particularly rugby, running, and I'm interested in history, particularly all history really. And it's just I did find that when I started writing, lacking confidence, that it was easier to write about things A, I was passionate about, and B, I had a bit of knowledge of.
So it's a bit of starting with where you love.
Yeah,
certainly, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're writing about something like I once wrote a book about Formula One, and it's not very good, and I didn't enjoy it because it's not my sport. It's just not what I'm interested in. But football, I can write about, and from a fan's point of view or a player's point of view, I feel comfortable with the material, so I don't question myself. And particularly at the beginning of my career, or the beginning of writing as a hobby, that was the only thing I could write about, because otherwise I was just like, had zero confidence. And you all know that in the classroom, that's just how it is, isn't it? And finding a way to link it to something that does give you confidence makes it more possible. Yeah,
good point. Tom, talking of confidence, it's not something that has necessarily come naturally to you, because your experience as a reader, you weren't particularly confident, were you, as you were sort of growing up? Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, I struggled as a reader. I didn't enjoy it. I found it intimidating. I had no stamina. A bit like some of the children you've been sort of showcasing already. But my mum, knowing that I was struggling with reading, used football to get me into it, because she knew that's what I wanted to know about. So newspapers, the equivalent of the internet, which you see facts is what I mean by that, magazines, and gradually biographies of footballers, and built up my reading stamina and my confidence. And those books, they weren't, any football book is not just about football, it's about other things as well. And those football books were about football in different countries, different people's lives. And eventually it led me to read more about history, about travel, to visit other countries. And any book you read is about more than the one subject it's defined as. And that suddenly I realized I was reading about history and war and traveling to different countries, and what it was like to have lived a certain kind of life that is beyond anything I'd ever really thought about before. And it broadened my horizons enormously. And that was just reading about football. But then I started reading other things too. And it enhanced my life enormously and made me happier and just made me more engaged with the world, I think. And then that had positive knock-on results following from there.
And when you do your school visits, do you find that having that experience, having been someone who didn't like reading, but then suddenly the sort of world opened up to you because you were just reading about something that you're interested in, do you find that the young people you're talking to respond well to that or are interested in that?
Yeah. So for instance, you like certainly a few years ago, there was a lot of children who supported Barca and Real. It's changed now. It's Dortmund and Paris, isn't it? And but they were interested in those teams. And then once you started telling them about the history behind Barcelona and Real's rivalry, or relating to the war, the Spanish Civil War, and to how players were taken from one club to another because Franco fancied a player from another club, and they were fascinated in that. And you were talking to children who loved football about Spanish 1940s, 30s politics, and it's ace. And that's what got me into. I traveled to Spain because I read about the antipathy between Real and Barca, because it was just so fascinating. It's not just football, and we all know, like with our football rivalries, they run quite deep.
They do, absolutely. And actually managed to not mention the 2-1 victory of West Ham over Leeds yet, but we'll move on from that.
Sorry, you're fading out, Jim.
Yeah, I thought I might be. So when you're talking to children about this, do you find that when you let them know that reading wasn't something that you liked, what's their reaction to that? It must be quite a surprise to them, I'd think, as you're a well-known author.
Some. I don't know about everybody, but some react. But I think once you explain it, and like I'm not unique in that regard. Like many authors like struggled with reading and came to it late, came to it through a struggle, and came to writing late. And I think it's good if they see that they're someone who's struggling a bit with reading, that it's the same path that I was on. It's probably a positive thing. In the same way, when they see that a professional footballer recommending what she or he likes to read, that's something they identify with as well, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And this is the role modeling thing that we've sort of started to talk about, and that Emily mentioned previously as well, in terms of walking it like you're talking about. I think it's incredibly powerful to be able to put authors in front of young people who've got and make them real, as it were, which sounds a really daft thing to say, but actually humanizing the name on the front cover. Because
I never thought I could be an author until I worked in a bookshop, and I still didn't think I could be an author. Then authors came in to sign the books, and I realized they were just normal people. Yeah. I got talking to them, and went for a pint with some of them, and it's getting over that idea that I'm this, and people who do these sorts of things like being an author or other things that what you might aspire to are beyond you, but they're not. And once you meet the person who's done it, it makes it possible for you, hopefully, in many cases anyway.
Yeah. No, I think it's invaluable. I've got a couple of questions coming in to the chat. I'm just going to ask you one last one from myself, which is just, about what we're trying to do with this particular session. Is how do you think teachers can use sport to get young people into enjoying their reading?
Right. I think I think mixing sport and reading together and putting a competitive edge into it. I've done a few models, like putting a penalty shootout or stickers, like you were talking about, just linking competitiveness to reading and finding information out, and doing a quiz or something like that raises the profile, raises excitement around reading. And I'm not just talking about new books, fiction. I'm talking non-fiction, newspapers, football programs, graphic novels, etc., and overcoming, finding those materials that sports fans are more comfortable with than maybe reading a big thick novel that's intimidating. And I'd say make that material available if you can, if you can get hold of it and put it around the class. And I love it when you go into a class and the children have all got their book on the desk for the silent reading time, and some of them have got football programs or Match of the Day magazine or something like that. So making them acceptable reading, and not like I thought it's not proper reading. I'm not a reader because I don't read proper things. I don't read big thick books, and you have these things in your head like, oh, I can't be a writer because I'm from Leeds, that sort of thing. And you've got, you learn, don't you, eventually? And so this would be part of that learning. I'd definitely say use National Literacy Trust programs and resources and videos and all that, because they are really, really powerful in finding the right things for the right time for your children. And that includes when there's a big tournament, like when the World Cup is on next winter, in a year and a bit. In a year and a bit, that is prime time, isn't it? When the women's Euros, which are in this country next summer, that's prime time to encourage reading about football. And unfortunately, the Olympics is always in the summer holidays, isn't it? But football tournaments, usually it's an opportunity to, build on the excitement and make reading more relevant.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I think, just a sort of tip to teachers as well, you don't have to know what the right magazines are. You don't have to spend money on those magazines. You can encourage your pupils and your relatives to bring in back copies of Match of the Day magazine and things like that. It's quite a simple thing to do, and they will feel so proud coming and going and sharing with you articles that they are reading and interested in. You've got Kane versus Sterling or something like that. That's in the magazine. So good stuff. I've got some questions here, Tom. It's going to pop to you. Lorraine wants to know what research you do for your books.
I do lots of research, and so with the football books, with Roy and Rocky Race, in these I read footballers' autobiographies. So Eni Aluko, the England women's player, James Milner, I've read them recently, and just to find out what it's like to be a professional footballer now. Then I'll go to football academies and watch. Like I've been away to watch England women play and watch them several times. And with the history books, I do like with those, I sort of do intense research because I'm writing about real people. I mean, the football ones, they're fictional, they're made up, people based on real people. But with history, you've got to get your facts right. If you're writing about the Holocaust or D-Day, you really have to understand your subject. So, and with history, the Imperial War Museum website is stunning. Photographs, recordings, documents, resources that linking them to your, like, for instance, you could say, like, a soldier, First World War, lived in Halifax, and you'd be able to listen to them talking. Wherever you're from, you can search it, and there's photographs. Imperial War Museum website is wonderful.
That's a great tip. And Tom, you're well known for your research, I think, and I enjoy the fact that you have spent the night in a stadium with no one else there on a tent in the middle, and you've interviewed footballers to get, what it's like turning up to training, being injured and stuff like that. So that's a great question.
And soldiers, like, talk to people who've been in the army and ask them questions, and then about their dilemmas and issues like that, but also got them to check it as well. And it's really important if you're writing about someone in history, to get someone who is an expert to check it, because you do make silly mistakes because you can't know everything, can you?
Quite right, yeah. So Emily would like to know, are you planning to write about any sports which are different to those that you already have?
I am not planning at the moment to do that. I think it's tricky. Like, I've tried with publishers. Publishers are very cautious. I think it's loosening up a bit. Like the Jason Reynolds athletics books were great, but I was rebuffed for years to do an athletics series. I'd managed rugby thanks to Barrington Stoke, but it's publishers who are reluctant. Cricket is massive in certain parts of this country and certain places, and it's even like I know, like, even well-known cricket writers for newspapers have been turned down cricket series, and I just don't understand it, because it's football, and other sports. Look, I would imagine other children resent that there's sort of 25 practicing football children's writers at the moment and no cricket ones.
So, and on the football ones, James, he wants to know, you've written some fantastic Roy the Rovers books. What's it like to continue this with such a famous character? It's quite a weight to hold of Roy Race.
It's on the one hand, it's absolutely thrilling, because I used to read Roy the Rovers when I was a kid, like the comic. That was one of the things that my mum used to get me into it. But Roy's a defined character, and you have to stick to what he is. He's a good lad. He's kind. He always says sorry. And so you are restricted with Roy. But fortunately, we've created a sister for him who's also becoming an elite footballer, and we've made her up from scratch, and so we can make her how we want. And she's a much more exciting character, because she goes in with 2 feet on the pitch and off it, and it's great writing her. But I mean, obviously, it's an honour and a thrill to be asked to be involved with the Roy the Rover stuff. And we know it's been going for decades, and it's really important to not corrupt it.
Get it right. Well, I think you certainly do, Tom. So thanks very much for coming along, Tom, and
thanks everyone for listening.
Having a chat with me. That's been really good fun. Good to see you. So I'll catch you soon. Thanks.
See you later. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to share my screen. That was our celebrity moment there. So great that we could have Tom. And I'm going to tell you about some stuff that you can get for free, because that's what we really want as well as teachers, to be able to come away from something with some good takeaways. So I'm going to give you some program examples that you can furnish yourself with and then really engage with your young people using sport. So our partners at the Premier League have a vast program called Premier League Primary Stars, and they've put some amazing and free and fantastic resources around PE, PSHE, around maths and around English. And we are chuffed to bits at the National Literacy Trust to be the content providers for the English resources on there. And they are for whole class delivery, they're for Key Stage 1, they're for Key Stage 2, all free. Go to plprimarystars.com, download and enjoy. And they are, they're there for you to have. In terms of Key Stage 1, we've been doing some collaborations with the FA as well. So the body which is responsible for football, for the rules, and for the England team, for the men and women's England team, and governing the sport across the country. And we have a storytelling program which uses, it's really particularly focused on getting girls active and motivated, but uses stories to do that. So again, we've been writing the content for that. You can find this as a free resource from girlsfootballinschools.org. So get along to the FA website and download some of those. And we've even got a partnership with Disney as well. So some of the latest ones are working with the second Incredibles film, and there's some other ones which I'm not allowed to talk about at the moment, but keep an eye on that site. Moving on, we've got a very specific intervention as well. So we've got a 10-week intervention. So this is really around securing, supporting reading skills and about celebrating the wide variety of reading materials that are out there. So just as Tom was just saying as well, so we're talking, he does quizzes around books, magazines, online reading, etc. And in a similar way, this intervention secures reading skills, but also looks at how you can read about football online. And that's okay. It's all right to get a match of the day or a shoot annual for Christmas. You see what Tom talked about in kind of being perhaps told off for not doing proper reading. That's certainly been my experience as well, as someone who loved comics growing up. But, that's what got me into reading. And that was the gateway drug. Comics were the gateway drug that got me into reading, I'd say. So this is an intervention which is aimed at children in year 5 and year 6. Again, those not meeting expected standards, but that team spirit that I talked about earlier, that's really where we're hooking people in for this. That's really where we are getting young people to want to be part of a reading intervention, which sounds sort of quite a concept to get your head around, but they are really driven by it. And it's the branding, it's the excitement of that affiliation with football. And one of the exciting things is that, part of my role is to train football coaches from around the country, from around the Premier League, from the Football League, from throughout the football pyramid. And I'm not talking about David Moyes as a football coach. I'm talking about the coaches that are employed by the club. So don't get too excited about meeting Mourinho, because that's not going to happen. But we are training coaches who are really exciting, positive role models who can go into school and they will deliver this intervention for you, often for free, because Primary Stars is a funded intervention. And what a lot of people don't realise is that Premier League pump a lot of their money, almost a fifth, into community. And I don't know many corporates that would do such a thing. So they're an amazing partner to work with. And we're really lucky because we know what reach they have. And there is a page on their website where you can find out about how to contact the local clubs. I think I've been wise enough to put a slide about that coming up. So that's a specific intervention. And again, you can download that for free and deliver it yourselves in class, suitable for a TA to deliver as well, or get a CCO to come in, a club community organisation to come in and deliver that for you. Now, quite regularly, we've been having something called Premier League Writing Stars, and this is a national poetry competition which has had tens of thousands of kids putting their poems forward around a certain theme. Now, word on the grapevine, again, I cannot confirm or deny that this is coming up again soon. So I'm excited that we'll be able to run Premier League Writing Stars possibly in the very new year. So please look out for that. Open to all Key Stage 1 and 2 pupils in England and Wales, and some great prizes. And I think every school that enters gets a really fantastic bag of free poetry books as well. So, well, the first 1,000 schools to enter. So you're in a very, very good chance of getting that. And then prizes have included a trophy visit and getting to meet some of the star-studded stellar judging panel as well. You can see someone here who's well known. Yeah, so we're looking out for that one for next year. So look out for that. And we are not a single sport program. We do have football. Sorry, we do have rugby as well. Yeah. So Emily, thank you for that on the poetry competition. It is really lots of fun and such a. I did forget to mention that we do write resources for you as well. So it's whole lesson packs. You can just download and run it. Use the form, submit. Jobs are good. Rugby, we've been developing this programme. This has been funded by Try for Change, by Comic Relief, and we've been working with rugby union clubs around the country. But again, a 10-week reading programme which looks at reading comprehension skills. We're looking for a new funder for this one at the moment, but we're also able to, talk to schools about how we can make that work for you on a local level. So if you're interested in that, please do drop us a line at sport@literacytrust.org.uk. And then we are constantly running events and stash. And Tom and I have got an event coming up as well soon. So keep an eye on the Literacy Trust website for that. Yeah, we like to put authors, we've been doing this a lot through lockdowns. We like to put authors in front of young people wherever we can. And sometimes we have direct funding to do that. Just at the end of last academic year, we had a Premier League Primary Stars Reading Festival. And we got Kwame Alexander here. We had an amazing host of authors, one every day throughout the last week or the penultimate week of term, which is a fantastic thing to do. We did a really great fun one on World Book Day as well. So they're not the difference about this. This is not just an author coming online and doing a reading or talking to you about their titles, which is very valuable and a fantastic thing. But we make these interactive. So we've got children in classrooms who can ask for shout outs, who can ask the authors questions, who can answer take on activities. So it's a bit of a workshop as well. So these are really good fun. And because I'm quite a blagger, we work with the publishers to get a free online read of one of their back catalogue books as well. So again, as an introduction to reading, we want to be able to supply that opportunity for those young people to actually get hold of something to read as well, having been inspired by it. And again, some competitions to win books, prizes, shirts, all sorts of stuff. So really good. And Tom, again, referenced the tournament aligned stories, and these are huge. We get to work with the FA next year. We're going to be working with the FA on the women's Euros, which is so exciting. And yeah, that's going to be massive. Hopefully going to get some access to some of the players to take part in that as well. That we'll have an online story for you throughout that tournament. So events, stash, all good stuff. And of course, I've rather grandly asked for the title of this presentation to be Kane, Rashford and Sterling, and how do they fit in? And I wasn't just making it up, because I've actually been able to meet Raheem Sterling and interview him about reading. He was a reading champion for us at one point. We've had Harry Kane do a recording for us for our World Book Day quiz. And Marcus Rashford, who is probably the best person in the UK at the moment, I would say, for his work for young people, for families who need it the most. And he has, I'm sure you are aware, an amazing book club. He has his own book out around mental health and well-being for young people, which is amazing. But he has his own book club, and we're working with Marcus Rashford on that as well, which is a really great way of getting his resources. We've been writing resources with them into schools as well. So it's not just flannel. We are working with these top names and these top players as well. So I did reference about, because it's a big question. And I used to get the question all the time, like, can you get me Harry Kane in my school next week? And, no is the answer. But it is also a less well-known fact that players within their contracts do have to do a certain number of hours of community work. I'm careful not to say community service every month. So they are able to come into schools occasionally, but they might be opening it depends how the club tasks them with what that community work is. But it is always worth the ask. And if you don't get a player in, then you might get some academy players who are the young people who are going to be, the next Marcus Rashfords of the world. Women's teams as well as the men's teams as well, and get them in. Try and get them in. If you can't get the top, the first team players in, these club community organisation coaches are amazing role models as well, and will come in and talk to you about reading and really inspire the young people. They wear the badge, they look like the young, fit football players that you want to have in your school and inspiring your young people as well. So plprimarystars.com/clubs is where you can find out how to contact those clubs. And I've got a cheeky plenary for you. So I've got some questions for you, but I have noticed that the chat has not been as active as I was hoping. So I'll give it a go. But I could be in one of those really weird, awkward Zoom empty silence moments. But let's do some questions and see if you've been paying attention. So who can tell me? You'll get a sticker on the Primary Stars web chart that I had. What year groups are Premier League Reading Stars aimed at? Can anyone remember who's paying attention? Hey, Stacey, yes. Stacey is straight in. So we are switched on here. That's very good. Right, so there's going to be a new share, and look at this, it's happening. There you go, Stacey. That's very good. Emily Weston also got one. So good. See, it's worth paying attention. All right, next question. What book was Harley reading? So we watched the film with Harley working at with Derby County, but he was reading a book which really inspired him. Hint, it was not a Tom Palmer book, but it was a footy book. Did anyone notice what it was? Oh, Tom, you were watching. Quite right. It's a Dan Freeman book, Skills from Brazil. I thought you'd gone away. Well done, Sandy. Sandy, yeah, you're going to get a, you are going to get a sticker for that. Tom, I'm going to give you a sticker too, because you're still here. Well done. Okay. It's exciting, isn't it? This is live stuff. What cheeky chappie is leaning on the Premier League trophy? Ollie Mers. Of course it was, Emily. Well done. Ollie Mers in capitals as well, noted. And this is going to really test you. What team had just won the Premier League? So for those of you who don't know, this is quite an interesting fact, if you're geeky. The colours of the streamers that are attached to the trophy are of the team that won. Nope, not Leicester. So this is 2019. Scott Evans, there you go. A Welshman that supports Man City, I suspect. So Scott, there we go. Well done. Scott, is that true? Let me know in the chat. Are you a Welsh person who supports Man City? Oh, Tottenham. I mean, man, as a West Ham fan, this is not good news. I thought we were going to get on. Okay. And what are the 3 pillars of sport and literacy? Sticker for each. Values of sport, Laura, yes. Role models, good. This is both, Laura. Engagement, amazing. I'm going to give you the top row. That entire top row is for Laura. Very good. Okay, so I am done. If anyone's got any questions for me, please put them in the chat. I will just put my email address into the chat. If anyone wants to get in touch afterwards, UB or another day, super welcome. Tom is available for bookings as well. I think he might have forgot to say. But I would really like to say thank you ever so much to Hoda and Kathy, particularly to you, for having us today.
I would just like to say amazing to you and your special guest, Tom. You were fantastic. And thank you for the interaction at the end. It's always lovely when you see people joining in, and it was great. So thank you so very, very much. And thank you to everyone for watching, whether you're at home, in the classroom, or on the train journey home. A link to the recording will be sent to you on Friday, along with a feedback form and some fantastic information from the Natural Literacy Trust and Rising Stars. So I hope you all have a lovely evening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.